What is the average life expectancy this day for an average English Mastiff?
I would say nowadays, because breeders over the last few generations have been paying close attention to it, not just me, any good breeder out there cares about longevity, and we've all been trying to increase that. So I would say, 10 years ago, you would be at around 8 years old. Now, most of them live to be over 10. And I want people to think about labs. How many of them live to be over 12, 13 years old? And how is their quality of life for those last few years? Meaning, if you can get a giant breed dog 10, 12, 13 years old, I think you're right in the ballpark of a lab or any other breed. And that's kind of where I'd like to see this end up, where you've got a dog, where a breed where the longevity is on par with the rest of them. Their athletic ability could be on par with the rest of them, meaning, if you're going to go to the beach, you don't want to say, well, Gus might start limping, we better leave him home. You don't want that. You just don't. The truth is, if Gus is limping, take him out to the beach, and after 3 days of that, he won't be anymore. Trust me. You got to get them juices flowing and teach those joints in the body how to evolve and what to evolve for. I also believe that if a puppy's raised in a kennel and they can grow up to 8 ounces a day of bone and flesh, some of the fastest growing muscle tissue on earth, next to deer horn. Deer horn can grow deer antler can grow 2 inches a day. Harrison grew 8 ounces a day. Now, if you're stuck in a kennel laying down and your hips are being formed and it's growing at that rate and everything's soft and everything, and that whole day and that whole month and that whole 6 months you lay in a kennel because, the owner doesn't want you to get hurt and all these things, how is that forming a nice, round, beautiful hip joint? To me, it would be more pancakey and you'd have more issues because the body doesn't even know, really what am I building it for? What is it being made for? Mm-hmm. So, allowing a pup to be self-limited, not being kenneled is important. They have to lay in these strange, weird positions to stretch out, and they know. They almost lay in positions where you're like, I got to move his head. He's going to break his neck. Nope, he knows why he's laying that way. Leave him alone. Mm-hmm. Leave him alone. And having a natural substrate with all the dips and all the little things for them to kind of find that little groove is very, very important. So if you're, constantly on concrete and flat, how can they find that little sweet spot? They can't. And again, yes, what you end up doing, and I recommend to everyone, always have, memory foam beds for your dogs. Over the course of their life, having a soft place to lay down is going to help them a great deal. So even if you do have them in a kennel, I would make sure you got at least an 8-inch thick memory foam, hypoallergenic memory foam bed of some kind at all times. They should always, they look at what they do for you. Mm-hmm. The least that they can get is a very soft, wonderful place to lay down. And if you don't have, tons of acres on a beautiful summer night to let them stay out and find one of those beautiful dips, then you better have a memory foam mattress for those when they come in at night or whatever, however, they do it. My dogs go in and out as they please because they learn how to knock. Ringo has taught them all. It's the most annoying habit on the planet, and they will break a window. If they want to come in, you are going to let them in. If the temp gets too cold, they will come in. If it starts to sprinkle outside or something and they're off doing their thing, and again, I live all private, so, they have limitless places to go, but yet they don't. They never leave the yard. They never leave the driveway. They don't chase, they might follow along when a car goes by, but as soon as it goes back past the end of the driveway, they sit down like a gargoyle and walk back where they were. If you're not on the property, they do not give a shit, and that's a fact. So, and that's just a blessing, because if you had dogs that, ran all the way, a mile down the road to the neighbor's house and they're 200-something pounds, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have people calling. You're going to have scared people. So it's just cool that they naturally bred into them that they guard their estate. Mm-hmm. Period. That's all they care about is you, the property, the house. That's it. And so it makes it so that you're able to let them kind of make their own choices to some degree, such as stay outside and knock on the door when you want to come in. They'll tell me, and when they knock on the window, now I'm almost ready to put plexiglass on the outside, so, because my wife goes, one of these days it's going to pop right through that. I go, okay. So I went and I got plexiglass so my dogs can knock on the window to come in when they want.
That's awesome.
But otherwise, they're out doing whatever the hell they want to do for as long as they want to do it. And but most of the time, they all want to come in at night. So nighttime rolls around, I let them in. Sometimes I leave one out to watch for coyotes and all that stuff. And the one that gets left out gets a terrible attitude, like they're the total badass of the group, and it's just fun to watch and film and be a part of. Ringo's gotten so smart that he'll want to lay on the memory foam, and the other two will be on it. So he'll get up and pretend there's something going on outside and do his bark, the alert bark thing by the door, and it'll force Harry and Paul to get up off the bed and go to the door. And what will Ringo do? Turn around, go lay down in his beautiful bed, all to himself, because he fooled those other two, and I cannot get over it. He pulls stuff like that all the time, and I just keep thinking, man, you boys got a lot to learn before you outsmart that guy.
Right.
Yeah, and they do learn. They're learning it, and they're not falling for it as much, but he'll just ad-lib. When Ringo wants what he wants, he'll get it, and he'll get it the most gentlemanly way he can. And that's one of the parts of the temperament that I truly fell in love with Ringo. They're not all the same. They're just like people. Within this breed, they're just like people temperamentally. There's very mellow ones. There's high-strung ones. There's skittish ones. There's brave ones. There's talkative ones. There's quiet ones. And, I kind of know what I like to breed with and what type of temperament I want. And all that goes into consideration because I really don't want a pup owner calling me saying my dog's afraid of everything.
Right.
Because that will eventually lead to biting out of fear and things like that probably also. I think a dog that has a natural, fear response is more likely to lash out, and that's not his fault whatsoever. It's just how he is or how he was raised or the environment he was in or whatever attributes to all those things. Fortunately for me, I'm involved with just about everybody in every facet. And, Roman Gottfried is a holistic dog person that I've seen take aggressive dogs and totally change them in ways that I couldn't begin to be able to understand or do. I can keep my dogs getting along and things like that my way, but it certainly isn't the same way that Roman does it. So again, if I ever do run into issues like that, I try to steer people in the right direction and in places that I have seen work that I believe in. And, so you really got to think about the people that are going to own your pups, your legacy and what you leave behind. And all of that has to kind of balance together and do the best you can. And I strongly believe that if you love something and you keep doing it and you do it so well, a Mark Twain quote, someone will pay you wages for it. You just have to keep at it and have people around you that help and believe in you and do whatever it takes to be able to do that. And my goal when I began this wasn't to get rich and retire and have the life of Riley and skip around. It was to be able to do this in replace of a normal everyday job and get paid over the course of the year to make up for not shoveling coal.
Right.
So if I can average $19 a year at the end of the year by working with dogs, I would rather do that, but it doesn't make me rich by any means. It makes me rich in a different way. It makes me able to have a job where I'm with dogs in the woods, hanging with my kids, and we have a lot upcoming. I'm working with a local singer and songwriter who is phenomenal. I met him when I was 15 years old. I'm going to do a post coming up about this. I had written an article for a paper. I had my own little paper thing for Proctor, a small town thing. It was like Joe's Cast and Blast or something. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an article, and this man was so taken back that a 15-year-old wrote the article that he came and wrote an article about me. His name was Doug Olson, and he had a tape of songs that he wrote, a lot of them Minnesota-based. Some of them have been distributed around the world for disability commercials and drunk driving commercials. So his songs are well known in the right facet. And he had this tape, and I fell in love with it as a young man. And I remember trying to get a car and having to make sure that it had a tape player and not a CD player so I could keep playing that tape. Well, I recently found him again, and I'm going to have him write music for dog people. I want people to hear his music. He's got stuff out there right now so I really am trying to get the Fur Beatles their own band too, and that takes a lot of time. We've been working very hard on trying to write music and get footage together and stuff like that to be able to give to people and help inspire and motivate, and I hope that my hopes is that maybe, if Ringo ever passes away, maybe this fellow will write a song for him or something like that.
Right.
Because I do feel that Ringo, of all dogs, deserves it, because he has worked so hard for his breed without asking for anything in return, simply just by being who he is and trying as hard as he does. And he's broke the mold in a lot of ways. There are a lot of bigger Mastiffs than him. His weight by no means is the largest in the world, but he certainly is the most balanced, in my opinion. And to me, that's the goal, to find something that leaves you breathless in shock at his size, but also with his physique, and also be able to do something with that size and physique, not just be something to look at that really is just big. That's not a breed with a purpose or a function, so to speak. It's more of a gargoyle. And if you want something like that, get a giant stuffed animal.
Right.
Or buy a grizzly mount or something like that you don't have to worry about. So that's just kind of my take on it. And I believe that anybody could do what I do and be successful, provided they believed in what they're saying. Honesty also is something that is extremely hard to find. Being very, very honest and blunt and truthful at whatever cost is something that I try to stand by. So, maintaining honesty and integrity is really important. If you're shady and trying to sell something and trying to, it is extremely difficult, doing puppies with no rights. Everybody feels like that means that it's not their dog, and that nothing could be further from the truth. What that means is you have me for backup, the breeder, for any problem for the rest of your life. And it just means that, if you had intentions of breeding, you would have to do the health testing, champion the dog, and go through the right things in order to do that. And if that's not something you're going to do, doing it backyard breeding in the garage with the neighbor's Rottweiler isn't something I'm going to tolerate. And that's why, if you have something worth having, there should be some kind of, standard. Meaning, if you want one of my pups, you got to be a good person. You got to be interested in having a companion, not jumping on my name or somebody else's, or making a quick buck, or paying for the dog by doing a breeding. That is not a breeding. That is not a breeder. That is not helping the breed. It's a one-time shot thing where the person's trying to make some money, and that's how the breed gets damaged. And I discount for that reason. Meaning, I make sure that it's. I understand that these aren't with breeding rights, and my main concern with me and the people that work with me is that these puppies have exemplary homes with people that primarily are interested in a companion of excellent breeding and health, not any other sinister motive underneath. The people that are interested in breeding, they're going to come to me and they're going to do what I ask them to do in order to achieve that. And it's not that difficult, and it's not that much to ask to render my name and say, yes, you can breed. If I'm going to say that, you're going to show me that you put in your part and you tested these dogs and you got them championed and you did all the things you need to do in order to breed these dogs, and then I would consider that. So that's like the main way anybody's ever going to be able to do that is going to be doing the right thing, or not at all. And it does cost me. If I sold with rights, it would be never ending. Never ending, never run out of people wanting puppies as long as I breed. Right. If I did it that way. And so it does hurt me and my clients by doing it that way. But the clients I have integrity, and so do I. And we understand that it might be harder, but in the long run, you're ensuring the health of your line. You're ensuring all these things that matter. And you're making sure that these people that do have these great ideas of becoming breeders understand that there are things you need to do to get to that level. And that is invest in that dog, prove it, test them, and we can definitely go from there. There's nobody in the world that if they championed a dog and put 10 grand into them, had all the health testing done, that I would say, no, you don't deserve to breed. There's no way I would ever say that to somebody, because they did. They tested, they did the OFA, they showed them, they invested in them, put their time and effort and love and care, and then you've shown me that absolutely you're the type of person I want involved with me. So that's why that, initially, anybody that uses me, you cannot sell those pups to the highest bidder with full rights. It's against contract, and I'll never allow it that way. That, the person would have to come to me and tell me their intentions and show me what they're willing to do. And I can tell you, if they do invest that time and effort, it's well worth the journey. It's well worth the journey. So absolutely. Everything that I do is done through a reproduction specialist. So even the collecting, the freezing, I don't deal with females. So progesterone testing, it's important on the female end that they maintain that. Usually they like to see three levels, so they know how she's rising, so we can predict what day that she'll be optimum and perfect for insemination and stuff like that. But so yes, you definitely have to have a professional involved, somebody that knows what they're doing, and everything documented and all of that kind of stuff to make it legit. There's a lot of people that do natural. Well, you're taking the word that those two dogs did that. You don't have a vet saying, and generally with me, people definitely want proof of who it's from and all of that. So it's all done through a specialist, and I can ship anywhere overseas or anywhere in the U.S. Provided people are on top of it, doing the progesterone testing and all that. And of course, like I said, it's all done through a vet professionally. So I believe that's important too. I think a lot of people would be turned off if I, sent them a baggie of semen in the mail. It's and there are people that have done and do that. There are studs that do that, and I know firsthand people that have received semen they paid a lot of money for, and whoever did it in the garage and put it in a baggie and send it to them. That's not how you do it. When you do a freezing or a collection from us, it's guaranteed 100 million live motile sperm after thaw, which means the vet has to freeze it that day. You still don't know if it's going to freeze thaw good, and you have to pay for the freezing, which is expensive. And then you find out at the end of the day how well it froze and thawed, and then they rate it, and you're guaranteed 100 million after thaw. So no matter how many vials it takes or whatever, and then of course that reaches you in a 9-pound cryo tank, and it lasts 9 days. It'll stay frozen in there 9 days. And then they use extenders. Semen, they use special extenders for it. The best in the business my vet uses, which also helps in successful pregnancies because it extends the life of the semen, period. So it's not something that you'd want to try to do in an amateur fashion. There's a lot of science behind it, a lot of testing behind it. And when there is a litter that hits the ground and they're healthy and safe, it is a monumental big deal, because when you think of how many steps of the procedure and how many people were involved and how much money and how much effort and time, it is a huge, huge deal when there's a successful litter that hits the ground. And there's no guarantees. Nature is nature. Nature is nature. No matter how good everything is done, things happen. Litters get absorbed, 2 weeks, a lot of things. So again, being involved with good people really helps you succeed too, because when you work with other people, if you're having a hard time, they're going to help you. Let's say somebody had an issue and didn't have a litter, I could do a stud fee for them and not charge them until later on. We can work within each other and help get things done with the best interest of the puppies at heart, rather than, spend for an upfront stud fee or something like that. So the people that work with me are very good people, or they wouldn't be working with me at all. Well, not all. I don't necessarily every breeding require or want a pup from that. Actually, That's a lot. Every breeding I've ever done, I've been terribly jealous and wanted all of the puppies from the litters, all of them. So if I had it my way, I'd have thousands of dogs, and they would all be mine. And
yeah.
But the truth is, I can only really keep so many to keep the quality of what I do up. Meaning, the more dogs I have, the less each one gets as far as personal time, and that's just a fact. That's just the way it is. So 4 is my max that I want at one time. I might end up doing 5, but I don't know. But 4 is ideally how many I would want at one time, and so I don't always want a pup. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll discount the stud fee a little bit for interest in the pups and help advertise and home them rather than a large stud fee, because that just helps financially everybody get through it that way. You're not slapping down a giant stud fee, even though that's sort of what it is. So I either do it that way, or I'll work, if I do want a pup, I'm going to be doing a breeding in France, I believe, where I do want a pup from that. And then I would figure what I want and what, and then probably do a breeding for a pup, or a pup plus a little bit of cash or something like that. And it really largely depends on the lines. There's certain ones that I want and certain ones that I'm not interested in. But that doesn't mean that I would not breed with the person. It means that I just didn't want a pup from that breeding, ideally, because I only can keep 4. Truth is, I would want, like I said, one from everyone, because I do. It's just the way it is. I think that's why a lot of breeders end up with a lot of dogs, is because they love what they do and stuff like that. So normally you go through the required testing, the genetic testing, the OFA, hips and elbows minimum. I prefer more thyroid and eyes and stuff, but as long as we get the major ones, that minimum is hips and elbows, and then all genetic testing to know they're not a carrier for anything. And then I, look at the pedigree. I talk to my peers that have always been there to help me. Some people use the hypo mating program. Lalo BG helps me kind of match up pedigrees and what's going to be a more complementary breeding and stuff. And so using the resources I have, I try to make the decisions that way. And so it's always up to timing and so on, whether I'm interested in keeping a pup or not. Most of the time, my big goal is that you got a healthy female with a decent pedigree, and pass those tests and sticks to the standard. And then we do the breeding for pets, for people that want a great companion and so on. And if I work well with that person and the litter turns out well, they definitely I would consider doing a repeat breeding and kind of going from there. So, keeping a pup is really rare, and they're monumental points in your career, because this dog, hopefully is going to be around for a long time. And again, I won't consider mine studs till 3 years old. I feel they have a lot to prove. A lot of people start studying them at a year old. A lot can happen between a year and 2 years that you don't foresee during development, and so on and so forth. So for me to ensure that I've given them as much time to finish and be what they're going to be, so that I can assess them, and then that's the final decision on who's going to end up studying or not. But so I hope that kind of answered the question. I try to do the best I can, but definitely that's usually the procedure. Somebody comes with me, they have a beautiful girl, a nice pedigree, and I tell them, here's what I require. And depending on the girl and the pedigree, it kind of depends on whether I keep a pup or not. And timing has more to do with it than anything, because I strongly believe I could take any lines, do what I do with them, and prove them just the same as I do mine. I don't believe I'm special. I believe throughout my breedings, every breeding that I do will be enhanced, so that in the future I might have a superior sub whatever you want to call it. But for now, it's really just kind of doing it right and kind of seeing how things are playing out, and making my decisions, from there. So that's kind of how it goes. I absolutely love Celine Hennepeau. She's from France. Celine Hennepeau has an excellent overseas program in France, very health testing oriented. That's one of the things overseas. They're quite a bit behind on the health testing throughout the years, as America was. However, they have some of the most stocky, beefy bloodlines, and very true to the Old English style there. So getting one overseas as one of my studs from overseas is very important to me, and it has been from the beginning. It's just, you need to, everything has to be right. I'm not going to send sub-quality semen overseas for sure. It's going to be the best I can produce, because it cost them $2,000 just to get the semen there. That's not even my stud fee or anything. That's just to get it shipped in that big cryo tank. So that is she's probably my favorite of the overseas people. However, most of the overseas breeders have some phenomenal dogs and great lines. So importing a little bit is important. You're gonna, and again, you're taking genes from opposite ends of the world, increasing the genetic diversity and the health of the dog in general. So of the pups. So it helps that way too. Getting genes from across the world is extremely helpful in your breeding program. So that's important. So that would be who I really enjoy overseas. You know, Lalo Beachy, he's from Mexico. He has some phenomenal dogs, phenomenal lines, does phenomenal breedings, and is very good at what he does. And we've talked many times about doing something. And so he's another guy. It's not necessarily overseas, but different country. There's a Canadian gal that I really enjoy up in Canada that I bred Harrison with. And so, yeah, there's some good ones, you know, all over. You know, I don't know their actual name for their kennel. I know them by who they are. So I guess I can't, off the top of my head, remember, you know, the exact kennel names or whatever. So,
can you talk about some of your mentors during your journey with your
yes, in fact, I would love to. And, you know, because giving these people credit for all they've done is important to me. Deb Jones is kind of my main mentor, and she was Thunder on Mastiffs, and has, you know, made sure that I did the right things right from the get-go. She also had a lot of work to do with making me be nice and presentable to public. She goes, "You're too much of a hermit. You can't talk to people like that." You know, so she's had a lot of work to help with how I how I don't get mad about stuff and help me morally that way a great deal. Steve Oifer, who is a curator for the only Mastiff Museum, has been priceless. There isn't a single human being, I believe he's in his 70s, that has dedicated more time and study than he has to the Mastiff breed. And he would put me in my place immediately, no matter anything I did wrong. In fact, it's almost miraculous to get any sort of praise from him. And he has given me very little through the years, but any from him is almost unheard of. So he, I do believe, enjoys me. I believe we're very close on a certain level, and to me that's huge. You know, Alicia Pledger has been a breeder that behind the scenes has helped me in ways that I could never ever even begin to thank her for. From research to study to semen quality to financial issues to everything you can think of, that gal has had my back from day one. Before everything, before anybody even knew who I was, you know, loved what I was doing and stuff like that. So she has been very huge. You know, and then recently I've had a couple of very, very good, honest people that are going to be working with me that I did some litters with, and that's Candy Colbeck and Cassie Mayfield. Both of them have been very good to help me kind of achieve the things I want to achieve, and standing behind the no full right sales. If you knew how many times those people have came to me and said, I got offered this, I got offered, and they were nothing but honest and did everything I asked them to do. And that's hard. If someone's offering you $10K to go behind my back, it takes a special person to say no. So, and I repay that to the best of my ability. So those two last names mentioned, I'm actually mentoring them. But I've learned from the people that I aforementioned. And, you know, there's many. There's Holly Moody, who is a genetic wizard. She has been, in the past, helped me make decisions that unbelievable. Lalo Beachy, again, many late night conversations and about dogs and pedigrees and hypomating and planning things. And so he's been huge. Rory Ward is another gal. She did my pedigrees for my guys, extended huge pedigrees with way more information than needed and absolutely beautifully done. She did Harrison's and Ringo's, and to date, they're probably my two most favorite documents that I have, and it took her just tons and tons of time. And her breeding requirements are as strict as it gets. Again, very hard to get any approval out of Rory Ward, but again, that's the type of people I like and I respond to. Straightforward, telling it like it is. And this is kind of what, you know, and it's helped a great deal. There are so many. Karen Cornelius runs some health groups. There's just so many people, and if I forgot any, but basically in general, most of the Mastiff community did nothing but swoop in and help, and they're a very, very kind group of people that really do love dogs in a way that I believe is unique to Mastiff owners and so on. You'll get some of them that are really stuck in their ways, but you need to respect that and say, hey, you've been breeding 40 years. There's no way I have that knowledge that you do.
Joseph, ooh, so I must be Mary, Joseph, Allah,